Jesus Christ was not a white man. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're watching this from. I hope that the Lord has kept you well. This is Job Wakenya. And today I'm going to be here to talk about a topic which I've divided into two sections. So today is going to be part 1, and then next week I will talk about it on section 2. So if you have 10 minutes, please hang on there. That's all I need you to give me 10 minutes. And I will read through the Word of God. And whatever I will say, you also have to think about it and decide about it and read about it and research about it. Okay? Thank you very much for subscribing. For those of my subscribers, I know you all. I don't have so many of you, so I thank you. I thank you for always watching my clips, and thank you for telling some of your friends to subscribe. What I'm going to tell you today is not a conspiracy theory. It is not a made-up story. I am going to tell you what you already know, and if you don't know, some people know, and therefore you will know today. What I'm going to tell you is something that is out there in the open. Only some people don't know about it, because we have been brainwashed. When I say we, I mean black people all over the world. Many of them are still sleeping. Many of them are still not aware that this has been a lie. So, hang on there, my dear friend. I'm going to read from the book of God, and I'm going to make my own interpretation or understanding so that you also can do the same. So, I'm going to tell you about the information we have been receiving all over the world and the pictures we have been seeing of Jesus Christ. We have seen a picture of Jesus Christ in the churches, in houses. Maybe in your house you have a picture of a white Jesus hanging on the wall. So this is the image we have been given for so many years, that Jesus looks like this. They have put a picture of an Italian actor portraying him as Jesus Christ. I want to tell you today, and you know, and maybe you have heard, to know that Jesus Christ was not a white man. Jesus Christ was not a white man. Just think about it in historically. 2,500 years ago, where Jesus was born in Africa, in the Middle East, there were no white people there. They tell you Jesus was born in Bethlehem, and they tell you Jesus was born in the Middle East. During that time, 2,500 years ago, there were no Europeans in that part of the world. That's a fact number 1. A fact number 2 is when we read the story of the Bible, how God called Abraham from his people. And he told him, I'm going to send you somewhere. I'm going to make you a great nation. And then Abraham became the father of Isaac. And Isaac became the father of Jacob and Esau. Sons of Isaac were Jacob and Esau. Esau was the first one. Jacob was the second one. Now, I'm going to read for you, because it is from the tribe or the lineage of Jacob that we got the 12 tribes of Israel, which God blessed and chose out of the many nations of the world. So, in the book of Genesis 33, we read that Jacob settled in a place. Let me read verse 18. After Jacob came from Padan Aram, he arrived safely at the city of Shechem in Canaan, and they camped there within sight of the city. So, Jacob, the patriarch, Jacob, the father of the 12 sons, lived in Canaan. Canaan is another land next to Egypt. In the Bible, my dear friends, we have so many places mentioned. A place like Canaan, which is in the Middle East, and at that time was part of Africa. Then we have Egypt, we have Libya, we have Cush, we have Ethiopia, and some other parts. Majority of these places mentioned are in Africa. Then later on, we are told that in the chapter 35, and God, after that, after Jacob returned from Padan Aram, God appeared to him again and blessed him. God said to him, your name is Jacob, but you will no longer be called Jacob. Your name will be Israel. So he named him Israel. So we hear and see God has named Jacob Israel. Then later on, Jacob got 12 sons. When he got 12 sons, he still lived in Canaan. Canaan, which is in the Middle East today. Canaan, which is in Palestine of today, the one they're destroying. Canaan was part of Africa. That region, that is where Jacob and his family lived. So we are told that out of these 12 sons of his, the 10 of them conspired and sold one of their brothers, who was Joseph. They sold Joseph. If you read in Genesis 37, listen what it says on verse 27. Come, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay an hand on him. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh, and our own blood. So his brother agreed, and they sold Joseph for 20 shekels of silver to the Ishmaelites, who took him to Egypt. So Joseph now went to Egypt. We are told, if you continue reading the story of Genesis 37, 38, 39 to 43, you will see that Joseph, even though he was sold in Egypt, God was with him. God blessed Joseph. Joseph ended up becoming a governor in Egypt, second in command to Pharaoh. Joseph, an Hebrew boy who was sold when he was 17 years, ended up becoming a second in command in Egypt. This was because God was with him and God blessed him. God gave him the dream of 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine. When he told this story to Pharaoh, Pharaoh was a wise king. He made Joseph in charge. So Joseph became the one to execute the plan of building more barns for food during the time of plenty, so that when famine comes, they will have food. Joseph became the one to execute it. And then later on, we are told there was famine in Canaan. And therefore Jacob sent his sons and said, go to Egypt. There is food in Egypt. Go and buy food for us so we don't die. So these 10 sons of Jacob went to Egypt to buy food because there was famine all over the place. So when they went to Egypt, it was Joseph, their brother that they had sold, who was in Egypt, who was in charge of distributing this food. When they got there, Joseph asked them, where do you come from? Joseph asked his brothers, where do you come from? From the land of Canaan, they replied, to buy food. Although Joseph recognized his brothers, they did not recognize him. Then he remembered his dreams about them and said to them, you are spies. You have come to see where our land is and protect it. No, my lord, they answered. Your servants have come to buy food. We are all sons of one man. Your servants are honest men, not spies. No, he replied to them, you have come to see where our land is unprotected. But they replied, your servants were 12 brothers, the sons of one man, who live in the land of Canaan. The youngest is now with our father, and one is no more. They are talking about him who was no more, who they had sold to Egypt. And here is Joseph standing there, talking to them through an interpreter, but they could not recognize him. First, Why would they not recognize him? Because Joseph looked just like the Egyptians. And who were the Egyptians? The Egyptians were African people. They were black people. Joseph was a black person, therefore, because he looked like them, and his own brothers could not recognize him. The only difference was these were sons of Jacob, who was blessed by God, who was an Hebrew, and the Egyptians, who were Africans. They spoke Egyptian, and the Hebrews spoke Hebrew. That's why Joseph was using an interpreter, talking to them through an interpreter. But they could not recognize him because he was African just like them. He was black just like them. The children of Jacob were all black because Joseph could not be a white man and his brother be white. Joseph could not be a white man or a black man and his brother be different. So Joseph and his brothers looked like the Egyptians. They were all black people. The only difference was they were Hebrew, they spoke Hebrew, and the Egyptians spoke Egyptian. But in color, they were all black people. That's why they could not recognize him. Now, this has been part 1. So, it continues to say that Joseph sent his brothers back later to go and bring his father, Jacob, with his younger brother, Benjamin. Eventually, all the children of Jacob and their families and their servants moved to Egypt. Because Joseph was in charge, he was second in command. He brought all his family to Egypt. And that's how we ended up having the Hebrews or the Israelites living in Egypt. And they lived in Egypt for more than 400 years. Joseph got married in Egypt. He grew up. His children, Manasseh and Ephraim and many others, grew up in Egypt. The Hebrews, the Israelites, lived in Egypt. They increased in number. And when Joseph died, he was buried. His father died. He was buried. For many years, the Hebrews lived in Egypt. They prospered and increased in number. Now, next week, we are going to talk on part 2. Now we have seen how Hebrews ended up coming to Egypt, why they came, and how they came to Egypt. Next time, we are going to talk about part 2, and we are going to see how they lived and how they left the land of Egypt, going back to the land of Canaan. Okay? Thank you very much. I wanted you to see that part, so we will talk on part 2 next time. May God bless you. I want you to read these books when you get time on your own. I would like you to go and read in the book of Jeremiah chapter 8, verse 21. I would also like you to read the book of Job chapter 30, verse 30. And also Songs of Songs chapter 1, verse 1. Jeremiah 8, 21. Job 30, verse 30. Song of Songs 1:1. May God bless you. May God guide you. May God direct you.